What's going on YouTube? It's Sean the Barbarian here, back at it with another draft video. Today, we're going to be going over my 3-0 win with Black Red Vampires. Now, Black Blue may be reigning supreme in the draft world, but you can't always get that color combination, and Vampires are usually so open, and I'm going to show you why it's an awesome deck to dive into. All right, with Quick Draft going live this weekend, you might just find yourself at the draft table looking to play some Vampires. But before we get into it, why don't you like this video and subscribe to the channel? I also stream on Twitch most days at 7 p.m. Pacific and have an awesome Discord community. Links for all that stuff will be in the description down below. Without further ado, let's get into this video. Now, like I said in my intro, Quick Draft is up this weekend. It'll be going on for about a few weeks for Midnight Hunt. Quick Draft is a great way to experience draft if you've been hesitant. It gives you all the time you need to pick your cards, allows you to put up a list of all the pros' top picks and pick by the numbers if you want. But what I'm going to be doing today is showcasing why sometimes when you get the signpost of something is open and it's hyper synergistic, it sometimes can be way better than picking by the numbers of the best cards in the colors. All right. But if you are interested in some of what I think are the best cards of commons and uncommons in each color, I do have a playlist up on my channel of my top 5 picks for each color. Give it a check out if you want. But let's go ahead and dive into this draft. And all right, let's dive into this draft. We opened up an absolute bomb for our pack 1 pick 1, which is a great sign for any draft. We opened up Lord of the Forsaken. Okay, so this 6 mana, 6/6 flying trampler is a house already. That's a great stat block for any bomb in limited. But there's a part that I end up missing, and I was wondering why my opponent scooped on me when we get into the gameplay video when I landed this card, is that it has a sacrifice for a black. You can sacrifice another creature. Target opponent mills 3 cards. In a format filled with expendable creatures and tokens, you can mill out an opponent rather easily with this card. And I didn't really realize this and was wondering why people were scooping to it, but great mode. The other mode, you can pay a life to add a colorless into your mana pool. You can only use this to cast cards from graveyard. Great if you're in the Disturbed or Flashback deck. We don't end up there. Again, this first pick puts us in black. I'm going to try to cut black as hard as possible. Village Watch was a great second pick possible if we were knew we were going to go black-red early, but Eaten Alive is a phenomenal removal card, and in black we have a ton of ways of making little nerds. Okay, pick 1, pick 3. We see a Celestis. This is a card that I would pass up if it was in my pack 1, pick 1, but I will take the rare. It's a lot better than people give it credit for. It's a mana rock on 3. It also has the ability to go day and night, gain you life, and filter through your deck. It does quite a bit. It is just something that maybe you don't want to curve out with. So after you have a board state set up, pick that, play that. Pick 4, we see Vampire Socialite. This is where we make the decision. Okay, let's buy in. Let's pick this card. And this usually is the signpost uncommon that people look for to see if Vampires is worth going into. We ultimately get it, and we're going to be like, all right, let's do it. Red isn't the best color in this format, but it is decent. And then we see our first pick, we chose Ecstatic Awakener over the Perforator, which is Perforator was a vampire. The reason why I picked the Awakener is that it is just an overall stronger card. Perforator does enable vampires, but again, even though we see the Socialite and it is telling us that we should go vampires hard, you still have to pick some cards that are good. The Perforator is great at enabling vampire strategies because a lot of vampires require you to do damage in order to get their secondary effect. So I do pick that one up highly, especially if I'm in red. We get a Forgers. Forgers is great for double spelling. If you do damage, you get 3 mana, and then you can use that to either discard a card or draw a card immediately using its effect, or play another spell, which is great for turning night into day if you're battling against anything like werewolves. All right, and then I think for the rest of these packs, for pick 1, we kind of just are making sure that we don't spread ourselves too thin, picking too many off-color things. This is where I pick up stuff like Evolving Wilds is a great pick if you have nothing to pick in your pack. I do recommend Evolving Wilds. We do mount a Dread Knight Wheel, which is phenomenal. It's a house, especially in the Vampire deck again. With that Perforator, go back to it. Kind of wish I would have picked that. Maybe had 2 in the deck. I think we ended up with only 1. But a lot of these vampires do gain value when you do damage. All right, pack 2. We immediately see that we lucked out. We're a little bit of luck side. We get another Mythic, okay? Tainted Adversary, 2 mana, 2/3 Death Toucher. It is great anytime you can play it on 2, which is a great stat block for a 2 mana, 2/3 Death Toucher is a roadblock to be able to get through, but it really shines when you play it on 5, when you get to bring 2 zombies and make it a 3/4 Death Toucher. Phenomenal. This is a constructed, playable mythic. This is a bomb in draft. Not the biggest bomb, but it is definitely playable nonetheless. And the rest of this pack is busted for us. Lunar Frenzy, another Vampire Socialite, and this is where we do the thing. We're going to be trying to live on the wheel. If we see this Vampire Socialite wheel, we are in the money. And there's another wheel potential, Hungry for More. We ended up picking the removal spell Devastrate, which is a phenomenal removal spell. But if Hungry for More wheels, we know Vampires is wide open. All right, and then here we go. We got a pack 2, pick 3 rare. This is a black rare that I do think that actually is splashable and is definitely pickable in most decks. This one brings a nerd every time, so a nerd something that you can willingly sacrifice, throw the wind. Brings a zombie at the end of every turn as long as you don't have a decayed zombie, so it's great for swinging a zombie in, testing the water, see if your opponent will just take the damage, enabling some stuff like our vampires, and then we just get another zombie back, or we can use it for eaten alive or other things that require us to sacrifice to gain effect, like a Static Awakener. It is a great enabler for those strategies. Do not sleep on that rare. I highly recommend it. It's only 1 black. You can splash it if your colors are a little bit weak and you're looking for another card. And then this one, we ended up picking the Perforator because it does look like we are going to be in vampires a little bit heavier. And again, we need that damage enabled. And this one is a swing guarantee. It's also a 2/1 body, very aggressive. Now, this is a vampire that I don't recommend picking, which is a Blood Tithe Collector, a 5 mana 3/4 flyer that sometimes discards a card. The stat block isn't that great for a 5 mana spell. I'd rather have a second Awakener that turns into a 4/4 with the enabling sacrifice outlets that we have. Eaten Alive could have been a solid choice here, but Diregraph Hoarder, or Diregraph Horde, excuse me, is a phenomenal card. That card never wheels. One of the best black commons in this set. You see it and you're in black, pick it up, and that also might be a hate draft potential. Now here's a kind of a wasted pick. I wish I would have picked Stolen Vitality instead. Wake to Slaughter is just a bad card. Never pick it, even if you are in vampires. It never works out for you. Pick the Blood Thief since we are committing harder to vampires. This card is really only playable in vampires. I've seen it in a few other decks. It is kind of a filler 3-drop in every deck other than vampires, because if you're playing vampires, it does give you the ability to strap it on vampires that have evasion like flying or menace or trample. This is where we get the payoff. We get both of our wheel cards, so we are green lights to go. We need to draft every vampire we see from here on out. We got the second Vampire Socialite and the Hungry for More. Hungry for More, kind of a so-so card. It can come down early and give you that like extra 3 points of life early, or even 6 if it does. If you just go 2 and 3, but then you're leaving your board state a little weak. But it is great for adding extra pressure to the board when you need to swing and kill your opponent. You can easily do that. All right, pack 3, pick 1. We get Bloodline Culling. Phenomenal removal spell. We are in black 110% of the way. We are just high-fiving ourselves thinking, hell yeah, we got one of the best removal pieces. It has a mode of either -5/-5 to target creature, or creature tokens -2/-2. Do not sleep on the -2/-2. It does clear out enemy decayed zombie utility batteries for stuff like larger zombie or siege zombie. Clearing those zombies out are great, and it also relieves you from the pressure of them swinging with a bunch of zombies at you and finishing you off. That's what ends up happening, is that people build up critical masses of zombies and then just kill you when your life total is low enough. Now, this one we did get a few cool things. Rotten Reunion is a great pickup there. Graveyard Control also gives us more zombies to sacrifice and use to better ourselves. I think we also got a Burn the Accursed earlier while I was talking as a phenomenal rule spell. I think we picked that over the Moonrager Slash, and I think it is overall a better removal spell, but the Moonrager Slash can go to face. We just need an extra removal piece, and I'm glad I picked that one up. We did end up picking 2 of the Ambushers. That card is only good, only good in the Vampire deck. It is awesome removal piece for us because we are playing vampires. We can do minimum of 1, upwards to 3, maybe 4 if we get lucky, but I think we only end up capping out at 2, which is decent enough to swing in with either my menacing vampire socialite or otherwise, and just pop a creature that they decided not to block with. Good stuff. Now let's see how this deck did in the gameplay. Alrighty, and this is going to be the first game we're looking at. Remember, this is best of 3, and I'm only going to showcase a few of those games just to show you how cool vampires can be. Alright, this is best of 3, so there's no hand smoothing. We only get a 1-lander. Would have loved maybe one more land unkeepable, so we mulligan, we keep 6, found a playable. This Vampire Socialite does work. Menace is such a great keyword, especially in this format, because decayed zombies can't block, and that means that they have to have 2 valid blockers in order to do that. So we get in for some early and consistent damage with this Socialite. We do end up getting a little bit stalled out on mana here, and this is where the decision of trying to keep the pressure on with Vampire Socialite, we end up killing this hobbling zombie, which is also a great way to get rid of a death touch roadblock. But now they only have 1 valid blocker. Boom, another 2 damage. So we're going to try to just keep them on their back foot so they can't set up slaughter specials. Okay, so this is a great rare. I actually like this rare a lot. Things die in this format a lot, and a 2-mana 3/3 that gives your opponent a little dude usually works out. However, they just gave us food for our Eaten Alive. That way we can continue getting in there for 2. But that is a card that I think is actually better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. 2-mana 3/3s is great. That grow. It's just a better unruly mob in black, which is a better color in this draft format. So if you see that rare, don't stick your nose up at it. Now this is a little bit of a mini pump by my opponent. They did have a dual craft trainer on the board and had the ability to unlock Coven to make that zombie, if they were planning to swing in, a 2/2 double striker, which would have been significantly better than putting the Courage on there, making a 3/3, disabling Coven, and then swinging in and still losing the creature. Okay, so here is the strength of Ardent Elementalist. I love this card. I like to try to, if I'm in red, I try to get at least 1 or 2 of these. Let's you buy back your removal. We chose to buy back Eaten Alive because we have things we can sacrifice, and 2, it's cheaper on the mana since we've stumbled on our mana early. We do have to maximize, so the 1 mana removal spell and then potentially drawing maybe a creature spell could allow us, like this, to do a double spell and remove pieces off the board while progressing our board state. So this is where we chose to see if we could swing in for 2 because they only have 2 valid blockers, a 0/4 and a 1/1. Means they have to lose their unruly mob. So always try to poke in there for damage when you can. Sacrifice that, get rid of the trainer, see you never. And unruly mob doesn't trigger because it is on death, not when it ceases to exist. Remember, exile does not cause die triggers. They just cease to exist. Great piece of removal. And now this is where I think my opponent has decided, yep, they've had enough, and hasta la vista. And alrighty, we're going to be moving on to the second game of that match. It was a great one. This was a phenomenal match to highlight. We're going to start with a keep of 7. Having the Evolving Wilds in the hand makes this a significantly better hand. We can go search up for that. Mountain, do not sleep on the Evolving Wilds picks. They help you fix your mana in this format that has absolutely no mana fixing at any rarity other than rare, which is not feasible in most formats. So on 2, we showcase Hungry for More. This does give us a little pad of our life total. Again, we're not setting a reward state or curving out like our opponent, but having a little bit of extra life does help out and allows us to play Celestis on 3 and not have to worry about our life total being too low. We're only at 19, and now we're mana ahead, and when the day-night cycle starts to go, we get to generate some value, which is phenomenal for us. And also, on 4, we get to actually cast a couple different options. We either cast Horde, or what we end up doing is Tainted Adversary, and then paying for its additional cost, so that we get 2 decayed zombie tokens to the party, which helps stabilize our board state with a Death Toucher, and then we start getting those utility tokens that we can use for Eaten Alive, and we end up drawing that to answer their threats, or just using it for extra pressure later on. Direcraft Horde was not a good sight to see. Got rid of our Hungry for More, which does limit our options and also brings 2 zombies of their own to the table. And then we are faced with the decision to answer with our own Horde and get no value on discard, getting stuff out of their graveyard, but it does give us an extra body and more of those zombie tokens, which with Lord of the Forsaken in her hand, and this is something that I didn't notice, is just mill food, and I wish I would have realized this earlier because I would have probably landed Lord of the Forsaken earlier, but now we're facing down a Dreadhound. Oh my goodness, this 6/6 Hound is phenomenal. Draft it. I don't think I put that in my top uncommon common picks for black, but it is a phenomenal card. It uh, pings your opponent for 1 for each creature that's put into your graveyard or dies. It is such a great clock. It doesn't even have to attack in, and it drains your life total of your opponent. And in these stalled board states, it gets pretty messy. Okay, they play their Slaughter Specialist. We saw this last game, and it actually is going to generate some insane value this game for them. And it showcases just how easy it is for this card to get big. Now, we do have an option. We can trade our Death Toucher with the Dreadhound, which is always great, but they do have a crawl from the floorboards, which just buys it back, which is tough for us. And we wish we had ways to deal with the graveyard at instant speed like Rotten Reunion. We're unfortunately going to draw to turn late, if I remember correctly. And then we have to decide whether we're just taking 4 or we're just going to take 4 because I should have probably blocked one of these zombies. I'm going to be 100% real with you. I should have blocked at least one, take 2 points less with my Diregraph Horde, but I was scared of something for some reason. I don't know why. Just wasn't thinking correctly. But now they get to grow their Horde and get their Dreadhound back. See, there's the Rod Reunion. Turn too late. Oh well. So we do have a few different options that we can do. We can either play Forgers just to go wide, or we can play Ardent Elementalist to buy back something. But I think we end up going to the Forgers, just no value, 4/3, just scary. Can't swing into this because I will trade away easier. And then they get to play their Dreadhound again, milling them for 3, which I didn't realize because obviously Lord of the Forsaken does mill, like I said. They're helping us out a little bit on that game plan, that they are 6 cards deeper, and I didn't realize this with the amount of zombies that we had. We could have easily just went bop, 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 mill you out. Tons of triggers. We end up trading to get rid of that Diregraph Horde and get rid of it permanently. Awesome piece of removal off the top. We are limited to 1 black, so if they do have a way of getting it back, this would have been their time. I don't believe they ended. Oh no, actually, sorry. We have Celestis. Duh, I'm a dummy. So we get rid of it permanently, and now we are looking good. Board state stabilized. We can just feed a 6/6 until we can play Ardent Elementalist, buy back our removal spell, and we are big chilling. We have enough creatures in order to do this. We're at 7. They're at 25. This, is a little bit scary, but I do trust in the process. We're going to play Ardent Elementalist, buy back that Devastrate. We can't play it, but we now have more food for the Slaughter Specialist, growing it to a 9/9, but we don't care because it is dying on my turn. And after that, we kind of have the board state stabilized. My opponent's top decking, and it's not looking good. And there we go. Celestis flips day and night. We get to filter through our deck, which is phenomenal. Dealt with the threat, and now we are big chilling. They still have a 2/2 Death Toucher, so our ground team is kind of held back. I also don't want to give them the option to block with the Beggar for whatever reason and be able to kill it, because I don't ever want Beggar to be cast for Disturbed. It just turns into literally Sarah's Angel. So sometimes when you see Beggar on the field, just keep it there. Do not kill it. Just find a way to work around it, because once it's dead, it turns into an absolute monster. So opponent sees the writing on the wall. I didn't know. Again, remember, I didn't know that Forsaken had the ability. I wasn't even thinking about that, but we had 6 zombies to easily sacrifice off, and bada bing, bada boom, we won that game. Moving on to our final game we're going to look at today. Another great game I think actually shows you how good this Vampire Socialite is. And the reason why I say that, it is a great card to bring in the early pressure. I had to mold a 6 here, but kept a hand with Evolving Wilds to go get that mountain. I also didn't have a turn 1 play, but the 2/2 Menace onto it seems to sneak in a lot more damage than I gave it credit for, so I might end up actually picking the Vampire Socialite a little bit more often if I'm going into a more aggressive shell. With the Tainted Adversary as backup, it is great. So here's what I'm talking about. Vampire Socialite onto, it has Menace. The 2/2 can get in for damage consistently. Also, it trades with both of these that they want to get rid of both of them. We end up playing Celestis on 3. Perfect. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we're mana ahead, and we're going to be seeing how good this card can be if you're allowed the breathing room to flip day-night consistently through the game, filtering through your deck. There are a few times when it flips that I think we made the poor decision, but Overall, I do think that Celestis generates so much value that I don't think you should sleep on that pick. Also allows you on 4, again, consistently getting this tainted adversary down with a +1/+1 counter. What an absolute bomb. Again, like I said, it's a constructed mythic, so it should be good in draft. And I think this showcase also that Death Touch is just a phenomenal keyword to have on any creature. So now we're big chillin'. We got 5 mana. We can play Mounted Dread Knight. Next turn, if we can sneak in for some damage, they end up dealing with our Tainted Adversary, but we do have ways of getting it back, like crawl from the floorboards and other such things. But this is a little bit of an adaptive turn. I don't remember what we end up doing, but Eaten Alive with the 2 nerds that we have there, the 2 zombies, we can get rid of the Ritualist, which is great. I was also thinking about getting rid of that Commando. That Commando can deal with the Celestis. I think our opponent should have dealt with the Celestis earlier. It is one of the main reasons why we end up pulling through with this game, because it just generated so much value. Also, here comes Celestis putting an additional +1/+1 counter, or sorry, this Vampire Socialite putting additional +1/+1 counter on the Dread Knight because we got in for damage. Dread Knight comes in with a +1/+1 counter if we dealt damage, and so the Socialite puts additional +1/+1 counter if on a Vampire if we dealt damage that turn. So with vampires, you're always going to want to do things on the second main phase. Remember that a lot of them do trigger if you've dealt damage. So please, please, please always attack first before you play your spells when you are in this deck. And here's Celestis drawing us into things. Ditching lands, getting creatures is great. I don't remember if we end up playing this ambush or we do have 2 in the deck, but we have a lot of things going on. Now this is where our opponent trades rather aggressively with this card. We end up getting 3 for 1 there, which is phenomenal value for us. Them having to use a hunt like that puts us in such a great position. But we only still have this Vampire Socialite. Again, we're still just drawing land, but Celestis, boom, allows us to just draw into what we need. We end up ditching the land, keep the removal spell and the creature. I could have ditched the creature and and then played the removal spell. That's not what we end up doing. We ditched the ambusher here. Look, we're just flipping the light switch. We're just a little kid in the house trying to bug mom night, day, night, day, night, day, and all the while filtering through our deck, customizing our hand, and ultimately allows us to just be in a better position than our opponent. It's 20 all, and we are not sweating at all. We are just, okay, we have bombs in our deck. We'll get to them eventually. You have to answer me, opponent. There was a little bit of a bait. I thought they might have had a combat trick. There are quite a few, especially for humans, like Test of Faith. There's also the one that gives +2/+0 in lifelink and then makes a spirit. And I thought that's what they were trying to get me to get rid of my Socialite. Socialite does have a lot of synergies in the deck by growing my vampires. So I was worried about trading it away for nothing. Instead, they just wanted to play their search party captain. And I kind of missed out on a free little trade, but it doesn't matter. We end up getting in for 2 here after playing the Perforator, and this is where we made the mistake of playing the Perforator before we swung in. That could have been a 3-2, which is a lot better than a 2-1. But I don't think it ends up really mattering. When you are drawing so many cards, you can afford to make little mistakes. Just remember that drawing cards always overcomes tiny mistakes in games because you just generate raw card value. Elementalist can rebuy a removal spell here. We end up going with Devastate over Eaten Alive because why not? I guess we are more worried about the creatures we have here because our opponent can come back to this in this game at any point. I do think we end up making a little bit of a mistake here. We did have the removal piece and our opponent knew it because we obviously got it back. We could have killed the search party captain and saved our creature. But I ended up waiting because I was like, maybe we can get some bigger fish to fry. You got to have a bomb in this deck, and I'd rather wait. We end up swinging in here. We get the trigger off of the Perforator already, and then Ambusher comes in, mops up to the switch. So now we could have either had the option of killing the veteran if they ended up trading with the Perforator because we already got the damage off the swing, which is what I was talking about earlier. So Ambusher was going to guarantee kill something no matter what, and I think we ended up playing that perfectly. There we go. That's worth the Devastrate. Get rid of that 3/3. Keep on just drawing into removal. I do think we end up just holding on to it and wanting to see if we can filter through our deck a little bit more. But again, we've drawn so many cards more than our opponent that it's just, only a matter of time before we get into the cards we want to be in. Flip the switch. We did not end up drawing because I wanted to hold the removal. There's a few questionable decisions I make here towards the end that don't matter. Our opponent backs out, but it's one of those things that I end up doing it and be like, oh, you know, like maybe we'll just draw land, always draw land. But that never ended up happening. We ended up having to make the decision between Bloodline Culling and our Forsaken. And our opponent scooped before we had to make that decision. But that was a kind of one of those like oopsie moments. I flipped the light switch one too many times. They traded away their wolf there. I don't really agree with that. And I think this is where we ended up drawing, and boom, we get Lord of the Forsaken. Our opponent backs out because they see the writing on the wall. We drew way too many cards. But I would have had to make the decision of our bomb or the removal. Chose the bomb at the end of the day because that's what's going to win the game over the removal. But that can be the downside of flipping the switch. Love this deck. Let's wrap it up. And there you have it, YouTube. Hopefully you enjoy watching some of those games, my commentary over it. If you're at the draft table, I do recommend finding yourself in black, and don't feel hesitant to pair it up with red. Red has an excellent removal suite. It has also vampires, which just suck the life from your opponent to your own benefit, and you win games. We ended up trophying that round, and I'm happy. Had a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying this draft format overall. Let me know how your experience with Quick Draft is over this weekend now that we get to do that. Hopefully you've been enjoying Standard. I've been playing some blue-black Control, and it's been feeling fresh playing some Control in this format. Overall, I'm enjoying Magic right now, and hopefully you are too. Comment down below with how you are doing. All right, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.